We want to talk today about this reality that there is an epidemic in our country of loneliness. And you see it all over the place. Dan's got a couple stats. I have a couple stats. People's general sense of loneliness is on the increase, and we need more and deeper relationships. Family's important, marriage is important, but that part that friends and friendship plays is really important too. And we want to talk from God's Word today about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, hey guys, just super thrilled to be here. And I'm just going to admit, I'm a little emotionally fragile.
Okay.
From what just happened up here. Nice. And so I'm still having a hard time just kind of getting beyond what this team did on the platform. And I've been to Good News in the Neighborhood now, I think it's probably about 4 times. Yeah. And we've walked alongside of you and Kristen, and just seeing God do just an amazing work. And I just want to say to you, and I might get a little... what happens here is really special, and you guys just need to know that when God's presence comes into this place, cool. It's a special thing, and it doesn't matter the size of the building, it doesn't matter the size of the church. When God's presence comes, it's awesome, it's powerful, it's precious, and Luke's been that to me, kind of, I told you, I'm a little emotionally fragile. I apologize for that.
We're starting at a level. I don't know where we're going to go from here.
Yes, good kid.
You're supposed to build up to the emotion. It's supposed to kind of...
You never know where it's going to go, but, and that's what I love about even just being friends with Luke. As we were kind of putting this talk together, I was saying the other night we had dinner, our lovely wives, and the 4 of us, and it was kind of like putting a message together or talk with Luke is kind of a bit of a beautiful mind scenario, where it's kind of, we had a Google shared doc going on, and it was like Luke was going all over the place, and all of a sudden he's like, at like 2 a.m. in the morning, I get this sheet of this amazing, thoughts that he's put together. So anyways, I feel like I've known Luke for long enough just to be blessed by his ministry, Kristen's ministry, and so we're just kind of enjoying soaking it all up here today. So we didn't plan any of that, but...
No, we didn't. What I'm supposed to say? Yeah, we're friends.
We're friends.
We've been friends for a long time. We're friends all the way back to college days. I think we have a picture. This is us.
Oh yeah.
I've kept a fairly similar hairstyle to that. We've been friends for a long time, and we've learned, I think, a lot along the way. I came today to say this: we need more and deeper friends.
Yeah.
We need more and deeper friends. Proverbs 13:20 says. Yeah. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Yeah. Now, we have a lot of varying ages in the room, but who could attest that verse is true, that you've seen in your life and you've seen in other people? Who would say, yeah, that's true. That's true. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools, put that back up for just 1 second, thank you. But the companion of fools will suffer harm. That word walks is really important, because the word walks, every time you see that in Scripture, contains the idea of relationship or of ongoing. It contains more than just like, it's cool. I don't know if you have people in your life that you call for advice. That's one thing. But the idea of walking with the wise and the companion of fools is someone that you spend a lot of time with. So we need more and we need deeper friends. Yeah. And we're not just using like a secular kind of framework, that there is something more that people who have Jesus in common can have with each other.
Yeah, and I've been doing a little bit of research and just thinking about just all of the way that our brains are built, and you guys know the research on how important relationships are. I was reading a neuroscientist who wrote a book called Social. You can look it up. It's pretty interesting. And he talks about how he uses the word malleable when he talks about our social constructs. So our relationships, our brains, we like to feel like we have like very, we know what we think, we know what we believe, we're very like, kind of independent thinkers. And the research really proves that there's a lot more influence that the people around us have. And that can go anywhere from level of income. I mean, there's studies that show that, the top people that you hang out with, you're going to make roughly the same amount of money as them. Just all kinds of crazy stats like that. You don't even really realize how important it is. And so as I've been thinking about this talk, I'm just obviously honored to share the platform here at Good News. And been thinking just about how, just that, I guess my goal, and I think our goal here is just, if we can think a little bit more about friendships, it's going to help us. And the Proverbs is really this book of wisdom. I like to think of the Proverbs as like the way of wisdom. It really opens, the whole book opens with, hey, if you want wisdom, ask for wisdom. Here's the part that I feel like I don't see a lot of, number one, in my own life, but I think in our just community. I think we want wisdom, right? We want to do things that are wise. We want to live in a wise way. But we don't always open ourselves up to the channels of wisdom that God has. And so, you know what I mean? Like as we look at the book of Proverbs, there is so much that talks about friendships, relationships, how to do it. And I just wanted to kind of just declare to you today that this is a way, friendships are a way, a channel for God's wisdom to come into your life. Yeah. Now, you have to do it the right way. Obviously, if you have the wrong friends and they're there for the wrong reasons, that's going to take you in a whole different direction. But if you do friendships God's way, if you walk with the wise, if you really just do life with people around you who are going to point you in that Godward direction, you're going to have wisdom. You're going to make wise choices. And I think you can even make a case for, and the research does show this, that, I read one article that said, the title was, you'll make an extra $100,000 a year if you have good friendships. I don't know that I can prove that. I'm not going to say that to you, but and I might not get invited back. But this idea that like,
I don't really
you're in on that? Okay,
well,
great.
I don't understand what it means.
I don't either. So
is that like the idea that like if you have friends that are slackers, you just kind of like peace all them, and then you end up by better people, and so then your life works out better? That doesn't feel very like Jesus-y, to be honest, but I get it. I don't know. I don't know. So as we were preparing this, one thing that we were kind of circling around is that we know that Jesus is perfect, but even you can see in Jesus this sense of having, choosing to have friends, and that there's layers of relationship even with him amongst the people. He has like the 70, he has the 12, he has the 3, he has John, the disciple whom Jesus loved.
Right.
We have all these like scriptures. It says over and over again. Now it is a little weird because this is John describing himself, which is a little like Kanye-ish, but you can see this all over the book of John. You can see this, that John describes himself as having a special or different relationship. I think we have a bunch of those from John, like 13, 19, 20, 21. You see it over and over. He describes himself there as the person whom Jesus loved. There's a place in the scripture that describes John as laying on Jesus' chest while they were all like hanging around together. So it says that there is something in the affinity that we can build in relationships that's powerful. Talk about that.
I was just thinking we haven't done that yet. I don't know that we're going to get there.
Well, and the reason for that, there's a reason for that. It's because our culture has conflated. Our culture has become so sexualized that people struggle to have categories for any relationship that isn't family or sexual in nature. And there is something that is lost when people don't have the power of like same gender powerful relationships that have nothing in common with the relationship that they would have with their spouse or anything like that. Our culture's like weirded out or afraid by that because of how skewed that it is. And so Jesus has this very special relationship with John. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think what's interesting to me is I was thinking about this talk. I was thinking, okay, what are the friendships of the Bible? You kind of go through and you're like, okay, you got David and Jonathan.
Yeah.
That's a very close friendship. Lots of power dynamics there. Jonathan's dad was the king. He was trying to kill David. Lots of interesting things you can learn from that relationship. Then you kind of fast forward a little bit. You got, I was thinking about Daniel and then his 3 friends. Yeah. The 4th friend was the angel in the fire. But those friendships and how they were able to stand together, they were able to stand against the king, saying, hey, you need to bow down and worship us. And then, kind of fast forwarded to, that's my phone.
You dropped
your
phone
there.
That was bad.
I don't need that. Anyways, kind of thinking like, I don't know, maybe the Bible's a little short on friendships, but then just thinking about Jesus' life, which is what you're saying, of Jesus had these 12 guys that he just kind of selected, and then he had 3 that he selected out of those 12, and then he had 1 that he selected out of the 3. And I grew up in a very grew up in a Baptist church. Part of the reasons why we're, I think, such good friends, we have a lot of shared experiences.
We both escaped being born in Canada.
We did.
And made it to a real country.
We did.
That's one thing that we did.
That is true. Yeah, I do have an American passport.
I'm from there. I can say whatever I want about it. You don't judge me for that. Yeah. It's like a B- America. It's fine, but it's like Michigan, but like a little worse.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
So, you know. I don't even know where I was going there. Oh, the idea of just kind of being choosy with your friends. I grew up in this very like, oh, you have to be, everyone's equal. We all have to be the same. And I just want to kind of strike that down a little bit today, because I think it's super, super important that we take a very curated approach to the people who are closest to us. And I think too many times, and I'll say this especially, I'm a pastor at a church down in Indianapolis. Luke's a pastor. I think for us, it can often be challenging because we're trying to minister to people. And I think for a lot of you probably in this room, you'll take that approach to people like, I want to minister to people. I want to serve them, and that's totally fine. But that is not a friendship. That's like a ministry. And so I just want to like give you guys permission to really be selective with the people that are around you. And I do want to say, there's so many stories of people. I mean, Luke and I think that picture was circa 2006, 5, somewhere in that range. Yeah. And we've really progressed through different. We weren't great friends at that point in time.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think that you learned. So it's the point that he's making that's a really important point. I think that's backed up by the scripture and this idea of Jesus and John, is that for most of the people in this room, life is too short and life is too busy and life is too complicated to invest in or spend time around people that aren't helping build you up, that aren't helping you build you up in faith, that aren't helping build you up to where you're going, that aren't helping you. So there's ministry. Ministry is like, I can help this person. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not the same as friendship. What makes the Jesus-John relationship so powerful is it appears that Jesus gives him a level of engagement that maybe isn't available to the others. Yeah. So I say it like this, and I'll build off what you just said. Good friends remind you where you're going. They don't just kind of like critique where you are. So what we work really hard, almost every Monday, you and I talk. I park my car in this parking lot right out here, and I go on my walk down the street to the coffee shop, and we talk about how church went. And on the days when I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is going to, I don't know, man. I'm not sure. Yeah. You say to me, no, like, God called you to do this. Yep. Things are going, I'm sure, better than you feel right now, and you're going to keep on going. Yeah. You have a story you wanted to tell about it, like a similar.
Yeah, I think... and we'll probably get this right in the second service, totally. But I feel like just talking through our relationship, and even just the fact that like I don't really know where you're at when you're talking to me on the phone. We live, 3 hours away from each other. We have lived. How far away was Los Angeles? We've been friends from Chicago to Los Angeles to Nashville to Indianapolis. We live in Indianapolis. You guys now are here, and what's beautiful is that we've been able to kind of keep that friendship really firing, I would say, on almost all cylinders. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely probably a little short on face-to-face time, but that does not make our friendship impossible. And so even just the fact that, like, we can have, and I do have to say, having a long conversation, has anyone had long conversations with Luke? I feel like it's like a blessing that he has invited me into having a lengthy conversation. That means he's interested, he's excited, he's putting this energy into our relationship. And sorry, this is a bit of a dig, but anyways, I just love that, like, there's possibilities, availability for different locations and your friendships to look a little different than maybe we think of, like, our families live next door to each other and we share a backyard or something like that.
This verse is the verse that I had for this section. This is Proverbs 27:9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Yeah. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. I remember one time, hey Flavio, here to take some pictures? All right, good, we'll act natural. So I remember one time you were transitioning in a job. Yeah. And you were transitioning out of church work, and I knew that it wasn't like probably like where your long-term life was going, but it was also what you were doing at the time. And I feel like in relationships, it kind of falls off into two different things. You have the people in your life who think their job is to always tell you why whatever you're wanting to do is a bad idea. Yeah. Or it's like always very negative oriented, or very like, what about this, what about this? Or the people who just kind of passively tell you that whatever you're thinking is a good idea because they don't have the courage to tell you the truth. And the beauty is in the middle, right? And so what this verse is saying, earnest counsel, Proverbs 27:9, has this idea of both support and truth. It has this, maybe this is a good idea, maybe it isn't, we're friends no matter what kind of idea, I think, inside of it.
I remember that specific moment. We were, I was working for Dave Ramsey, so a lot of you guys know Dave Ramsey, and went down to Nashville to do that, and I definitely needed to have a moment, I would just say, to kind of recommit.
Sure.
Or, what do you call it when you, renew your vows. Like, renew my vows to the local church. And some of you guys kind of know what that feels like. And going down to Nashville, this idea of earnest counsel is really something that I feel like is a true representation of the way that Luke has befriended me, the way that he's given me counsel. It's just very much like a discussion. It's like, oh, what do you think? Like, you think this is going to be long term? You know, just that idea of having conversation but not overly judging. I think a lot of times, as Luke referred to, friendships will end when one person does something that the other person doesn't totally understand. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I can't be friends. And short of, major sin or something like that, obviously those are areas where you want to make sure you're sharing with your friend if they're falling into those places. But when they're just making decisions and trying to make the best, of what their life is, I think that idea of just bringing earnest counsel, I felt like there was I can't remember if I was going to tell this story here. This is a beautiful Luke is a master
Stop
at
talking
friendship.
about me. We're trying to talk about all these.
I know, but who else is going to say this about you? So I remember, this is kind of a quasi-personal story, and you can judge me all you want. But so a lot of you guys know Dave Ramsey is like, no credit cards, you just have to, everything is cash. And so the way it worked. I was actually
looking at all the things you're wearing, trying to decide if you could fit that in a cash plan. Like, are those boots too expensive? That was
from Amazon. So
you said that, as I was feeling. Yeah.
Now I lost my. Oh yeah. So we're going down to Nashville, right? We're like, we had, from a pay standpoint, you kind of get your last paycheck, and then you have to wait to get your next paycheck. There's always a gap there when you move, and we had gotten a moving package and all that kind of stuff. We were all set, and it was, but because we didn't have credit cards, we had to kind of go down. I think at one point we had about $45 in our savings account because it was no credit cards. We were paying for the moving truck. Yeah. We're paying for all this stuff, and we had to wait until our first paycheck, which was 6 weeks or so, the way it kind of worked into my new job. And so it was tight. We're we're not doing credit cards, blah, 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 all this. And it was super tight. And I sent a picture to Luke of you might not even remember this, but of our coffee pot. And I had the Folgers plastic, the red Folgers next to it. I'm things are getting pretty bad here. Kind of a little tongue in cheek. And no judgment to Folgers people, but maybe a little bit. Yeah. You guys have great coffee here, by the way. I do like that. And sure enough, probably 3 or 4 days later, a box arrived in the mail with 2 bags of Intelligentsia coffee from my friend Luke.
I didn't remember that. That's cool.
And that's the kind of guy that Luke is. And I wanted to share that story because Luke really does walk this out, and we'll talk about in a few minutes here. But the idea, the energy that Luke puts in, I just always feel there's a reciprocation that's beautiful. I always feel like I'm not putting enough into our relationship. And I think that should be a little bit of how it feels. It's oh shoot, I gotta really lean into this.
Simple truth is that if you want to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. And so many people are I'm lonely, and then it's well, right, but what are the last 10 things you did to try to make a friend or be a friend or whatever, I think. Let's move a little quicker through some of these things we want to show in the scriptures. So, good friends tell you the hard truth, not just easy flattery. So this is Proverbs 27:6, which says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but profuse are the kisses of an enemy. So go back to high school English. He's making a comparison here. What's the comparison? The comparison is that a friend who's willing to tell you the truth, even though it might hurt, is worth a lot more than someone who just wants to tell you everything's perfect and then it isn't.
Yeah, and I think it's important that in these friendship relationships, a lot of times, again, I grew up in church, and so I know a lot of you guys have that experience, and you're sort of like conditioned, we're all kind of conditioned that we're supposed to carry around this backpack of truth that like we could just like, ignite at any moment in front of any, like our friends just be like, boom,
yeah.
Truth, you're not treating your wife properly, or your kids are messed up, or something like that. They're like, whoa, wow, okay. Not that any of that's true, but I really want to just encourage you guys. I think there's wisdom in having a relationship that is sprinkled with truth. And so having this idea where you're not like just all of a sudden like 6 months into a friendship, or annually Luke and I get together and I'm like, hey, I've got this whole list of truth stuff that I really want to like lay into you on. Just kind of like make it like for us, I would say that it's a part of our conversation.
Yeah.
And so we'll have like one conversation on the phone, and it'll be, a 20, 30-minute conversation, and there'll be truth shared in that conversation. But that's not really the theme of the conversation. It's more how
in relationships, right, the best hard truths are given when they're invited, not when they're like stormed in and given. Yeah. And we all know the people that we tend to go to for advice are the people who know how to tell us the truth in a way that we can hear, for sure. Here's another one. This is good, I think. Good friends walk in when others walk away. This is Proverbs 17:17, which says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. If you've ever been through a challenging season in life, which, what's kind of a thing is that to say? When you've gone through really difficult things in life, it has a way of sifting the relationships that you have, and you find out who the real ones are and who people aren't in various ways. You had an insight from the text I thought on this that was really cool.
Yeah, so I don't have a brother. Luke is really like a blood brother. I have two sisters.
I don't either. That isn't true. I do. But that was a joke. It was a joke. I do. Keep going.
And I'm always a little jealous of you and Landon, and just, like, oh, man, cool. You guys have this brotherly relationship. You can say a lot of things to each other, and there's love there. I think there's still love there. Last time I checked, there was still love there. And that translation, a lot of times, is like a brother is born for adversity. And I'm like, well, I don't have a brother. And there's some translators that say that a brother is, it should be translated a little bit more like a brother is born through adversity. And I think because some of us don't have brothers, like blood brothers, that adversity, challenges, when we, as you said, Luke, when we go through challenging moments, I grew up calling, so-and-so was like brother Ken or sister, Debbie or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that's truly what can happen is we can start to have these brotherly relationships through the adversity in our life. And that's such a great, like, even filter for who your people.
Well, it's why people like gather still at the VA, or why they go back to the homecoming football game. There's this thing about when you go through intense situations or circumstances with people, it has this way of deepening. I think in a way that's really powerful. Why this part is significant, I think, is it's easy to find people to walk alongside you when life is good and perfect and easy. There's like that one kid, in every like neighborhood who has a pool and like he has tons of friends all summer. Like that's not hard, right? That's easy. We want to look and try to build deeper with people who are there during the times when life is challenging. We got a couple more things I want to get to that are really helpful. Really good friends, this is 4. Really good friends remind me of who God is and what God has done. So there is a limit to what relationships can be that don't have Jesus at the center of them. If you've gone deeper in faith as an adult or found faith as an adult, you may have found this, that it takes something away from those old relationships. It just doesn't feel like they have the same, because they're missing that part. That a really important part of walking alongside. We were at dinner last night, Dan and I and our wives, and it was like we were laughing, and then at different points we were crying, and so much of it man, this is really bad right now, but God's got you. He's going to bring you through. This is challenging here, but God hasn't left you alone. Do you remember when we were back over there and this thing was happening? God's going to bring you through. And the most important role probably that friends have in our lives is that they point us towards who God has been in the past, which promises who he's going to be in the future. We found this quote I thought was really good. Tony Evans, preacher, says this: when two people who know Jesus become friends, they're not just adding another person to their social circle, they're joining forces to further the kingdom of God. That doesn't mean like just like you're starting a Bible study or something like that. It means that when relationships have faith in Jesus underneath them, they have a way of becoming something more.
Well, and I love that because I feel like Good News and Connection Point Christian Church, where I serve in Indianapolis, have benefited greatly from this relationship.
Oh, that's good. I hope so.
You know what I mean? And so I feel like the things that you're doing, the parenthood that you are engaged in right now, the marriage that you're in, the job that you're in, being a grandparent, whatever it is, it's hard to kind of underestimate how important just having a good friend and what that does for you. We talked a little bit at the beginning about just the mental health crisis that we all are aware of. It's just a part of our everyday lives. We talk about anxiety, we talk about, loneliness, and this idea of having friends that can help us, especially in this faith dynamic, and take us deeper into our relationship with God. It only enriches all of the relationships that we're part of.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, so it's all well and good to talk about there's people listening and they're like, well, this is all like well and good, but I don't have these people in my life. So it's all great to like talk about what should happen or shouldn't happen, but I don't have these people in my life. I moved across the country. I started a new job. My life fell apart. I got divorced, this or this or this or this. So we want to kind of take it this direction to talk about how to be a good friend and how to build relationships for a few minutes before we're finishing. Yeah. So I had this written. I said it a minute ago, but it's true. Being a good friend is the path to having good friends. It sounds so simple. But this is what you would tell. I mean, our kids have started over a couple times in schools at different times, and life, you recycle. The way to having good relationships and deep relationships is by being the one to make the move. So here's 5 things that we're going to finish with this. I think hopefully will be helpful. Yeah. The first one I said, if you want to have friends, you have to allocate energy to have friends. This is challenging when you're in that deep middle part of life with jobs and kids. And like I get to the end of Friday and I want to just turn my phone off and turn the TV on and like, my third son has one of these things right now. It's like a blanket with a hood on, and you can like put it over your head, and it's like you're basically dressed in a blanket. Have you seen these things? He tried to wear it to school. His mom about had a fit. But some of us, some of us are tired. And when you're tired, like being really practical, if you want to build relationships, you have to say, I'm going to keep some of the energy that I have to keep developing these relationships, because if I don't, they're not going to just all of a sudden exist. They're going to drift. If you have that thing in your life where you're like, person X is my good friend, when was the last time you saw him? We haven't been in the same room like since before COVID. That thing, it takes work.
Yeah, and you wrote down a note of like, keep the plans. And I think in our day and age...
Do you have any of those people in your life that they're like really good at saying they want to hang out?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
And then they're just like magically, it always falls apart at the last second. I know like the world of self-care tells you that you should feel okay about canceling your plans if you don't feel like it. I think that's a little bit lame, to be honest. Yeah. Anybody? Can I get any witnesses on that? Can I get any? Come on. You came to the early service when it might have snowed. Yeah, come on. Yeah. All right, keep going.
Yeah, so the next one is I think the next one is avoid exclusivity. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's the next one? Avoid exclusivity. And our friendship would not work if we could be the only friends that each other had. Or if somehow we were just like leaning into, oh, really? You're like... I grew up with this in a kind of Baptistic tradition, and the technical term for it is called second degree of separation.
Yeah.
This is huge. I grew up in an area or with a belief system that like if I was friends with you and you were friends with someone that I didn't agree with or like, I couldn't be friends with you. I think that is just complete trash. Like I feel like that is something that is so far out of our control to manage, like relationships that go even beyond it's like,
sure.
What?
Sure.
And I think that kind of has bled into a lot of the way we do relationships. Is there's people that you're going to hang out with that I don't necessarily hang out with, there's people that I'm going to hang out with and connect with that you're not necessarily going to connect with, and that's okay. And so this idea of exclusivity can feel like, obviously we don't want to be like middle schoolers or, all of that, have cliques and stuff. But it really is important, I think, to just understand that, hey, it's good for you to have great friends that are outside of our relationship, likewise, et cetera.
3, one really important way to be a good friend is to accept boundaries. Yeah. So this is like, if he's already told you that he's not going to break up with her, don't keep like trying to turn the conversation towards that. This is like true for sure in all kinds of relationships, that accepting the dimensions that the person is willing to live in is a huge part of it. Again, this is where we kind of circle back to this part again. If my desire to tell someone what I think is true about them is the most important part of wanting to have a relationship with them, it isn't really a deep relationship. It's sort of selfish. And so accepting the reality of the relationship, accepting the boundaries that the person puts in front of it is a really important part of it. 4.
Yep, love that. Let's see here. 4th is to add value. Add value. And this kind of blends in with the next point, which is accept empathy. We could probably put that one up there, accept with empathy. This idea of adding value is really just trying to see how you can serve the other person. Hey, what can I do? And then I'll take the 5th one real quick, because accepting with empathy, one of the things I love about Luke, and as we started to work together and get to know each other a little deeper, I realized Luke has a high amount of empathy. Empathy is the ability to get into your world, understand what you're going through, and the challenges that you're facing, remember that, be in that with you. And I just think Luke is really just a master of that. And he's blessed me so many times with we'll get up on the phone and he's got this church here and he's got a family of his own and sports and all kinds of stuff that you're working on. And it'll be like, hey, how was the swim meet this past weekend? Or how was the, whatever special event we had going on in our family. I mean, it's such a beautiful picture of a selfless approach to relationship, and I really appreciate that. But I think he adds value, and then he also has this empathetic approach to understanding the things that I'm going through.
So I guess you kind of figure this out when you're young, and then when you're older, you can forget about it. If you want to have significant relationships in your life, you need to create with the people that you encounter the sense that they want to be around you again. They want to talk to you again. When I'm with this person, they ask questions, they make connections, they think of things that can help. And if we're being honest, it's really easy as your life gets busy to get pretty self-oriented and pretty selfish and pretty focused on all my problems. Have you ever had that experience of being around someone and realizing that the whole conversation was them telling you how challenging their whole life was, and then walking away and being I would be cool to literally never talk to that person again. So just being honest, just for a sec, show of hands, who's had that experience? Come on, right? Yeah, we have. And so I think that mostly we're talking to adults in this room, that if we want to have significant relationships, we need to make the people in our lives that we want to have relationships be when I'm with that person, they come to give. They don't come to take, they come to give. They come to give. And why we wanted to do this today, now we're getting towards the end, and we're going to pray in just a second. Why we wanted to get at some of these topics today is so many people get stuck in their faith, not because they don't read the Bible enough. Sure, most of us could grow in that, but that's not the place that a lot of people fall. A lot of people don't fall because they don't know how to put encouraging sermons or music in their ears. That part is pretty as easy to access as possible. Lots of people have a good counselor. That's important. But you get to this point where sometimes the thing that you need more than anything in life is a person kind of walking the path with you saying, come on, you can make it. Keep on going. You got this. Keep on going. Don't you remember don't you remember how hard you prayed for this baby that now is keeping you up at night so much that you feel like you may stop being a Christian? Just to throw one out at the early service that I happen to hear from time to time. And there is something about those relationships that they are almost, it's almost like a cheat code to following God with strength. And we think that we're okay on our own. Some of us are like that Lone Ranger type. We think that we're okay on our own, and we need people more than we realize. We need people to encourage us. And so church is a place where if you have some desire to make relationships, there's relationships to be found here. If you're willing to take the time to volunteer, meet people, stay after, take the powdered donuts that nobody wants. No, we don't get powdered donuts. That's part of the order. We don't do that. But you can find relationships here. There's relationships to be made here. And the reason why this is important is friends don't just make our life more fun here on earth. That would be a lame thing to show up at church for. They are a deeply important part of continuing on in standing in the faith that we say we believe in. Anybody agree? Anybody agree? Why don't you stand to your feet, and I'm going to ask, Dan's going to pray, and then I'm going to pray, and then we're going to be done. Hope this has been useful to you today. As we're getting close to the Easter season, we're really thankful that you were here today. Dan, why don't you pray, and then when you are done praying, I'll pray.
Cool. So God, we acknowledge that you are present in this space, and we acknowledge that you are the one. In fact, your son Jesus came into this world and promised us that if we do his commands, we will be his friend. We will be your friend. What an amazing reality that with the God of the universe, who has so many other things going on, that every single human being who puts their faith and trust in Jesus and lives in accordance with his will, that they could be friends with God. And so, God, I pray that today that you would allow us just to, as this conversation has happened, I pray that this would just be a space where we could think about the friendships that we have. Maybe there's friendships that are in the early seasons. It's never too late to make a great friend. It's never too late to put some energy into having a great friendship. God, I just pray that we would be inspired and motivated, that you would bring to mind those relationships that we could invest some time in and just kind of see, give us the courage, give us the time and just the ability to put ourselves out there, God. I know that's not always easy, but I just pray that there would just be blessings of relationships that just happen through this time we've had together this morning. And we're just praying these in Jesus' name.
Lord, I want to pray for every person in this room and every person that's listening right now. Lord, I want to pray first for the person who is lonely, and this conversation is only just circling and highlighting and underlining that feeling of I'm missing some people. God, I want to pray that you would give them wisdom and in a supernatural way bring the right people around them to walk the path that they have in front of them right now. Lord, I want to pray for people who've been wounded deeply in relationships, maybe wounded deeply in church relationships, that you would give them the strength and the grace to open up and trust and try and believe again. Lord, I want to pray that you would give us all the wisdom and strength and insight to love the people that you have placed in our lives in a way that is helpful to them and honoring to you. And Lord, just help us. We need people because we want to serve you well. Help us find those people in our lives, I pray. In Jesus' name, if you agree, please say amen.